Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're embarking on a really fascinating exploration.
We are.
We're looking beyond, just decluttering and diving deep into domestic minimalism, but through this amazing lens of traditional Japanese architecture and design.
And we've got some great sources to work with.
We do a YouTube video transcript, Domestic Minimalism, The Art of Japanese Life, plus excerpts from Japan style and traditional Japanese architecture. Really rich stuff.
Definitely. And our mission really is to give you a clear yet deep understanding of how the Japanese approach creating living spaces that are, well, both meaningful and beautiful.
Looking at old examples, new examples, trying to get those insights you can maybe even use yourself.
Exactly. Offering ways to appreciate these ideas, maybe even incorporate some principles.
Something that struck me right off the bat from that YouTube source, this idea that beauty can be found pretty much anywhere, even ordinary places.
That's a great starting point.
It really sets the tone, doesn't it, for how Japanese design achieves this kind of everyday beauty. So, okay, let's unpack that. How did this philosophy actually, take root?
Well, it's fascinating. There was this real intellectual shift in Japanese design. Our Japan-style source talks about this drive to, quote, eliminate the inessential.
Eliminate the inessential.
And importantly, to find beauty in things that were simple, unadorned, even humble. This wasn't just like a quick trend.
No, it sounds fundamental.
It resonated for centuries, still shapes Japanese homes today. It's about finding spaciousness in maybe small areas and a sense of permanence in fragile things.
So the home isn't just shelter.
No, it's integrated with nature, in harmony, not just protection from it.
And we heard about Zen Buddhist priests playing a role in the Muromachi and Momoyama periods.
Right, their influence was huge. They really articulated this ideal of simplicity, mindfulness. It spread throughout society.
So it became an aspiration for many people.
Exactly. And the homes that resulted from this philosophy, they were meant to, well, speak to the soul, provide a quiet, simple base.
Okay, so stripping things back is key. But then there's the Sukiya style. That sounds different, maybe less about stripping back.
Well, it's an evolution, perhaps. The Kia style became really common for most non-formal homes. And it sort of reversed the very rigid rules of the earlier Shoin style.
Allowing more personal expression.
Precisely. It actually found beauty in the passage of time. You know, how natural materials age indoors, the moss growing in the garden.
Right, embracing that change. Which leads to this really interesting point. What were the elite looking for in materials? It sounds almost counterintuitive compared to, say, Western ideals of perfection.
It really was. They were drawn to things that looked fragile, even flawed. Like using moth-eaten wood for cabinet doors.
Moth-eaten wood.
Yeah, it perfectly captures that idea of wabi-sabi. Rusticity, simplicity, maybe even a touch of loneliness, but considered highly sophisticated.
Wow. Embracing imperfection as a sign of sophistication? That's a whole different mindset.
It really is. It challenges that whole idea of needing flawless beauty. Time and nature add value.
And Sukiya style also affected the layout, right? The arrangement of things inside.
Absolutely. It favored asymmetry, deliberately avoiding perfect symmetry or repetition.
Even with structural things like posts.
Yes, even the post arrangements on walls were designed to avoid making spaces feel too uniform. You might see different kinds of wood used.
Oh, interesting. For a variety.
For interest, yeah.
Yeah.
But it was always unified. Strong horizontal and vertical lines, muted colors, it all tied together.
And the goal wasn't just to impress people.
Not overtly. It was more about pleasing the people living there. Owners were often really involved, choosing materials, adding playful details.
Let's shift focus a bit to that connection with the outside. The nature connection. Blinds, corridors. How did they bridge that gap?
That integration is so key. Those open-weave blinds, the sudair, they really blur the line between inside and out.
So you can still see the garden.
You can, but the light is filtered, breezes come through. The YouTube source even mentions how the patterns can look like rippling water. Very evocative.
And things like rattan rugs.
Yeah, closely woven ones over the tatami in summer, associated with coolness, visually and maybe texturally too.
And architecturally. What created that transition space?
The deep eaves are really important, and the engawa, those veranda-like corridors.
Ah, the engawa.
They create this in-between zone, shielding from harsh sun, making the shift from inside to the garden feel gradual, almost gentle. It's a really special feature.
It sounds like the people living there were active participants in creating beauty, too, like Chizu Kusume, who was mentioned.
Yes, she's a wonderful example. Infusing her home with her own aesthetic, She calls herself a devoted admirer of flowers.
And ikebana, the flower arranging, that fits right in, doesn't it?
Perfectly. It embodies that respect for nature, that Japanese aesthetic. It's not about masses of flowers, but a few, carefully chosen in an asymmetrical balance, dynamic yet fragile.
And her own school, Murasaki Kai, has a specific philosophy.
Yeah, the idea is to arrange flowers as they'd grow naturally in the wild, no forcing them into artificial shapes, just capturing their essence.
You see that personal touch elsewhere too, right? Like her hibachi.
Exactly, the indoor brazier. It holds her everyday things, but arranged like a still life. Even her table shows off the wood grain, thanks to a skilled carpenter.
Okay, let's travel to Kanazawa now, the Mimu home. How did regional differences show up there?
Kanazawa had this elegant, maybe slightly bolder culture during the Edo period, especially compared to Kyoto. Think arts, tea ceremony.
And the Mimu home reflects that. It's from the 1870s.
Yes, post-Meiji Revolution. It's quite stately. Tea rooms, storehouses. It has that presence.
What about specific details in the tea house? What feels distinct?
There are these lovely rustic touches, like a wall with two round windows instead of a sliding partition.
Okay.
And inside those windows, you see the unplastered lattice, the shitaji moto. It's quite raw, natural. The walls have this warm ochre clay color, osakatsuchi.
So still simple lines, subdued colors, but maybe with these bolder elements.
Kind of, yes. It creates order. But with these interesting textures and features, even in the small three-mat sitting area, low table reed cushions, it feels very intentional.
And there were some really unusual details mentioned too. Backlit floors.
Yeah, in a small Tukanoma alcove, a backlit white glass floor, and walls with thick sculpted paper treated with persimmon tannin. Lots of texture.
Still keeping some traditional elements like the doma, the earthen floor area.
Yes, that connection to the traditional townhouse layout is there,
Yeah.
but it definitely showcases a more refined, maybe elaborate aesthetic for its time and place.
Which brings us to how these traditions live on. The Yamamoto family restoring that minka, that traditional farmhouse.
That's such a great story. They bought this 1912 farmhouse initially just for weekends.
But then they found something.
They found the Munafuda, the construction plaque, it named the carpenter, confirmed the quality of the work. They were so impressed.
They decided to restore it properly for full-time living.
Exactly. But they were smart about it. Left the main structure and exterior mostly alone. Focused on the interior, making it work for modern life.
So how did they adapt it sympathetically?
Well, they got rid of additions that weren't original in spirit. Found old fittings, tatami mats elsewhere to put back in. They reused treasures they found in the house.
Nice. And the layout now.
It flows really nicely. Wood-floored living room, tatami room, the veranda, all arranged around this central pillar.
Using those bamboo blinds, the sudair, again.
Yes, to define areas softly, without closing things off. Keeps that open feeling. And the owner's antique collection, that Imari porcelain, adds another layer. History, artistry.
Across all these examples, this theme of craftsmanship keeps coming up, and the connection to nature. How do those two really intertwine?
Deeply. There's this idea of getting the little things right, as the YouTube source says. That's seen as key to beauty.
Even in temporary things, like that Shinto altar, the himuragi.
Especially there, maybe. It's for groundbreaking ceremonies, made with natural materials, each with symbolic meaning. It shows respect for nature, transience, detail.
That focus on the temporary is interesting, isn't it, compared to how we often prioritize permanence?
Very. And this nature connection, it's not just visual. It's tied into Shinto beliefs, coexisting with Buddhism.
Which also values nature.
Right. And Buddhist ideas like aware that poignant sense of fleeting beauty and mujo, impermanence, they're woven into the culture.
Plus, Japan just has the materials, right? Wood, stone, earth.
Abundant natural materials, yes. Hinoki cypress, cedar, and the skill of the carpenters is incredible. Those earthquake-resistant joints showing off the wood's beauty. It all developed in harmony with the seasons, the climate.
It feels very relevant to today's focus on sustainability, actually.
It really does, a long-standing environmental awareness.
Teji outlined 10 key elements of traditional architecture. Can you give us a few highlights from that?
Sure, his framework is really helpful. It covers the materials, wood, stone, earth. The idea of setting limits to hint at infinity, creating dynamic space.
The garden as a miniature universe.
That's a big one. Linking nature and architecture seamlessly. The pillar and tatami mat relationship. Tea houses, bamboo.
Borrowing scenery.
Exactly. The rhythms and vertical surfaces, the roof is symbol. It shows how holistic it is. Everything connects.
And tea houses get special mention. Why are they so significant?
They're seen as uniquely Japanese, an architectural form found nowhere else, really.
And architects still want to design them today.
Very much so. It's a way to engage with tradition, with those core principles, even in modern work. It embodies that Sukiya aesthetic perfectly.
Let's talk about living on the floor. That's another defining feature, isn't it? Despite outside influences.
It is. It started practically getting away from damp ground with straw mats, then raised floors, tatami.
Which meant less need for furniture.
Right. No need for bulky beds or chairs. The floor became flexible. Sleep, eat, socialize. Just add cushions.
And hierarchy was shown differently.
Through raised platforms on the floor, for the nobility, not chairs, it fosters a different relationship with the space.
Leading to those flexible, multi-purpose rooms we talked about.
Exactly. Because there wasn't heavy furniture, rooms could adapt. Houses were used for daily life and big events like weddings, funerals, remove partitions, reconfigure.
And the different floor levels, the doma and the raised tatami areas, helped with cleanliness.
Yes, separating functions and the custom of removing shoes. It also helps communication, people seated, people standing.
That flexibility feels very modern, actually. Thinking about small urban apartments today.
There are definitely parallels in thinking about adaptable living.
Okay, let's touch on regional variations again. The Ainu people in the north.
Yes, Hokkaido in the north had the distinct Ainu culture. Their houses were wood, thatched roofs, reed mats, a central hearth for the fire goddess.
And a sacred window.
Right, for communicating with nature spirits. Really fascinating. And Minka roof shapes vary too, didn't they? Depending on the region.
Gachusukuri, kabuto.
Exactly. Developed based on climate. The Gashuzukuri in Hida, those steep praying hands roofs.
To shed snow.
Heavy snow, yes. Huge houses, often multi-generational, sometimes space for silkworms too. Thick thatch, heavy timber for insulation.
And we see this diversity elsewhere too. Okinoshima in Echo.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okinoshima's low, heavy tiled houses for wind resistance. In Echo's fishing village structures, Shirakawago, each adapted perfectly to its place.
Underlying all this is the incredible skill of the carpenters and their respect for tools.
It's profound. The tool is the soul of the Japanese carpenter. That says it all.
Each one tuned, maintained.
Meticulously. Master carpenters might have, well, over 170 tools, each for a specific job.
Categorized as instruments of the mind and tools of the hand.
Yes, measuring and marking versus cutting and finishing. Even the simple bamboo marking pen, the sumisashi, is treated with care.
And often made by specialist tool makers.
Right, a relationship of mutual respect between the maker and the user. The skill involved in making those metal blades is just incredible too.
What about roofing materials beyond thatch?
Lots of variety, bark, tile, wood planks, copper, sometimes combined for visual interest or to show hierarchy, like on tea houses.
And that unusual minka roof held down by stones.
Yeah, just the weight of the stones securing the battens. Ingenious. And skylights, like in the Yoshijima house, designed to enhance the timber structure with that rope and pulley system.
Let's get down to the foundations, connecting the building to the earth.
It starts with foundation stones, supporting the timber frame. Often columns rest on separate stones.
Which allows for the raised floor, for ventilation, keeping pests out.
Exactly. And the Ingawa makes the building feel like it's floating slightly. Different systems existed, individual stones, continuous footings, simpler ones for smaller buildings.
And the walls, not just barriers.
Ever just barriers.
Yeah.
Compositions of material, color, texture. Farmhouse walls were functional, thick plaster between rougher columns. Refined buildings had plaster harmonizing with wood paneling.
Made with bamboo lath, mud plaster.
Often finished with bright white lime plaster, a strong contrast with the wood. And importantly, these plaster walls were fire-resistant.
Some storehouses even had double roofs for fire protection.
Yes, the kura, very clever.
And openings, partitions, crucial for flexibility and light.
Absolutely. Window shapes evolved, became more decorative in shoin and sukiya styles, and fusuma, the paper sliding doors, and shuji screens.
Essential for filtering light, dividing space.
Completely. Allowed rooms to be reconfigured easily for gatherings in all kinds of buildings.
Then there's the tatami mat, more than just flooring.
Much more. A fundamental unit of measurement. It dictated room proportions.
Those sizes varied regionally, reflecting different construction priorities.
That's right. Column-based versus tatami-based design. Standardization came later, simplifying things but maybe reducing flexibility a bit.
Even ceilings had a role in defining spaces.
Definitely. Reinforcing formality, hierarchy. Shoin style had elaborate coffered ceilings. Suki was more about refined simplicity, connecting to nature. Playing with ceiling treatments even in small tea houses.
And we shouldn't forget decorative elements and storage.
Right. Those shikidana shelves started as storage, but became display areas. Writing desks, tsukishoin, place for light, became more ornamental.
The hearth, the row for tea ceremonies.
Built into the floor, and the adjustable kettle hooks, jizai simple in farmhouses, elaborate in grander homes, plus built-in storage like oshir, kaidandansu stair chests, and movable tansu chests.
And the toponoma, that specific display alcove?
Yes, the focal point in formal rooms. For scroll painting, kakejiku and ikebana, or bonsai, chosen seasonally or for guests, sometimes small sculptures too.
How would you characterize ornamentation overall? Is it just about showing off?
Sometimes, historically, in temples or upper-class homes, yes, expressing power. But in Minka, it's often minimal, functional. Beauty comes from the structure, the materials.
And ornament is used?
Often comes from function, or uses natural motifs, flowers, animals, landscapes, geometric patterns too. Carpenters showcase the wood's natural beauty, grain, color, form.
Like the tokobashira, the alcove post.
Exactly. Chosen for aesthetics, maybe an unusual wood or texture. And there's generally limited metal hardware. Joinery and bamboo nails were often preferred.
Moving outside now, shaping the land itself, gardens as integrated spaces.
It starts way back, with shaping land for agriculture, like terraced rice paddies. But beauty was sought everywhere. Religious sites, homes, farms,
Gravel courtyards and temples.
laid out by geometric principles. Then garden design really evolved with shoin architecture, becoming spaces for pleasure viewing.
And the three main garden types emerged.
In the Edo period, yes.
Yeah.
The Zen meditation garden, the stroll garden for aristocrats, and the tea garden, accompanying the tea house.
And the tea garden had specific elements, right, to prepare you for the ceremony.
Meticulously designed.
Wow.
Outer garden, waiting bench, the roji path, inner garden, cleansing basin. It's a whole choreographed experience.
Even gates and walls seem significant.
Gates are key thresholds. More elaborate ones came with Buddhism, like at Tutaijinidi. Walls enclose, protect, but are also landscape features, sometimes just symbolic boundaries. Fences very solid, open, often bamboo.
And paths, more than just getting around.
Definitely designed to guide movement, build anticipation. Materials indicate formality. Sometimes they incorporate old objects, meditate, make you see them. Bridges connect, sometimes symbolize journeys.
What about gravel and stone borders? They sound subtle.
Very subtle, but crucial. They define edges between gravel and plants. Along paths, gutters, usually kept low. There's even a formality system for them. Shin, jush.
And the stones themselves have personalities.
Chosen carefully for shape, markings, size, often named. Arranged to support each other, master and attendant stones. It's an art form.
And water.
A divider, a connector. Can represent specific places, evoke travel.
Even those temporary sacred spaces, the himuragi, they encapsulate so much.
You really do. Natural materials, symbolism, reverence for nature, transience, craft, detail. It's all there.
So wrapping this up, it's clear Japanese domestic minimalism is, well, way more than just tidying up.
Oh, absolutely. It's this deep philosophy, finding beauty in simplicity, integrating with nature, embracing imperfection.
And the importance of craftsmanship, thoughtful design, creating harmony.
Exactly. It runs through everything from big picture planning down to, choosing the right tool.
It really makes you think, how could you apply these ideas? Not necessarily copying, but shifting perspective.
Right. Thinking about eliminating the inessential in your own space, appreciating natural materials, subtle details.
What could you consciously remove to create more space, maybe more peace?
It's a powerful question. What feels truly essential?
A great thought to end on. And obviously, we've only scratched the surface here.
Definitely. There's so much more to explore. Agabana, the tea ceremony, the carpentry itself.
So we definitely encourage you, our listener, if something sparked your interest, dig deeper. It's a truly fascinating world.